It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Farkhondeh Ahmadzadeh tonight. Farkhondeh is an Iranian artist based in London. Her work explores the disciplines of Persian poetry manuscripts, sacred geometry, and Persian miniatures. She's lived a rich and adventurous life and has worked both as an academic and artist in Iran, America, and Europe. For the last 20 years, Farkhondeh has regularly spent time living and studying under calligraphy masters in Iran. She was awarded the Jerwood Prize, which is a very prestigious prize in the UK, in 2011 for Islamic traditional art. And she continues to teach Islamic manuscript and Persian painting at the King's School of Traditional Art here in London. And the work that they do is absolutely fantastic. I went to see one of their shows a few months ago. And there's a little reel on our Instagram account from that show. Farkhondeh's body of work on Haft Paykar, the epic poem of Niẓāmī, has been exhibited in London in 2016 and 2017 in Scotland. Her painting shows the stages of Reza Abbasi's Seated Man, is on permanent display at the Al-Bukhari Gallery in the British Museum. So another great honor to have something exhibited in the British Museum in London. So Farkhondeh, welcome. Can I ask you how you came to be a manuscript illuminator and interested in poetry? You know, where did this all start?
I think as an Iranian, Nicola, poetry is in our blood. So I remember as a young kid when all the elders get together and open a book of poetry by Hafez or Rumi and then just read a little bit, and we would all sit around and listen. So I think we are all very involved in it. It's you cannot see any Iranian home without a book of poetry of these great Iranian poets. So I really loved it as a young girl. I remember because of the situation we were at the time, it was the war and we were moving, and my mother asked, just pick up something and take with you. And what I took with me was my choices of poetry that I had written in a small book. And I think poetry leads itself to calligraphy in a way. So I started calligraphy at the age of 18 when I just found a master and I worked under him. And I think manuscript illumination, it just follows the calligraphy, because I don't know how everyone is familiar with this sort of art. Usually the hierarchy first is the calligraphy because it's the words, and then it's adorned by gold and biomorphic designs around it. And then both of them together led to the illustration of them, because many of these Iranian poetries or Farsi poetries, they are epic poetries and they lend themselves to be illustrated. So this is how my journey started as a young girl. I think from the poetry, it led itself to the art of painting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a very interesting trajectory, isn't it? So tell us a little bit about the exhibition. I think on the next slide you have an image of the whole exhibition. Tell us about this particular exhibition. That's on at the Aga Khan Center in London now.
Yes, this exhibition is the fruit of me sitting in British Library here in London and looking at old manuscripts. I remember I think it's the only place, to be honest, in the entire world that you actually can get your hands into the manuscripts and flip through them. Everywhere else, when you go to the museum, it's open on one page and it's under glass, and you have to fight the reflections to see something. But here I was amazed that I was able to sit there and just spend hours with them. And I never forget my feelings the first time that I would have a 700-800-year-old manuscript in my hand. I would smell it And I mean, I just would flip through the pages and I would start reading it. And I couldn't help the tears of joy just coming down my face. It was such an emotional experience for me. And just by chance, I got my hand to a khamse of Niẓāmī. Khamse means quintet. So it's 5 different books or 5 different poems that he put together in one book. And one of them is the Haft Paykar, which the second word, Haft means 7. The second word is really hard to translate. But I was speaking to Michael Barry very recently. He's a prominent scholar about the Persian miniatures. And he said he would translate it to 7 icons. And I really liked that translation. So I was looking through these manuscripts and many of them. And because it's an epic poetry, it's been illustrated over and over through different kingdoms and throughout the years. So the poetry itself is a 12th century poetry, but I think 100 years after the poem itself, it started to get illustrated. So it was a journey for me just looking through these, and I thought I could imagine a workshop of tens, if not hundreds of people, each one of them having a particular job, one being specialized in calligraphy, one with paper maker, somebody would draw the lines, somebody drew the faces, somebody would paint the architecture, another one the nature. So it was many apprentices, many masters working as a group. And I thought to myself, it's very unfortunate that we have lost this throughout the years. And I knew single-handedly I couldn't have done a whole book, but I thought, okay, I can maybe illustrate and illuminate and write some of the story, maybe in few pages. And it won't be feasible these days to have it bound. So I thought I would it in different images in the frame. So I can share a little bit of the past and what we actually, unfortunately, have lost with everybody else. So this is how the actual journey started, sitting and looking at the actual manuscripts.
It's very exciting. I know I've had that wonderful opportunity myself as an art historian. It wasn't easy to get them to agree to let me see them, but you can see them, as you say, and it's just such an amazing experience. Yeah.
So should I continue with this?
Yes, please do. Please do. Tell us a bit more. Maybe do you want to tell us about the Haft Paykar and Niẓāmī a bit more?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. I think, yeah, it's a very interesting story, Haft Paykar. It's the story of a Sassanid king, Iranian king, who was sent by his father, Yazgird, to be brought up in Arab land in Yemen at the time. And it's a long story of about his journey of a young man and how he was engrossed in wine and hunting. He actually, his name is Bahram, but they call him Bahram Gur because he was so engrossed in hunting zebras. So any zebra that he could find, it was a mark of him on it. So every other hunter in the region were hoping to find a zebra without his mark. So they would say, okay, and it was difficult for them. So he was a masterful hunter, and he was living the life of a prince at the time. Then while he was still away from his hometown or home country, he entered the room, and in the room he views a picture of 7 princesses printed on a dome of that room. And looking at them, he sees these 7 princesses from 7 different geographical places that was known at the time, and he falls in love with them. And later on, people see him visiting that room with a lock. He opens it, he just goes there and opens the room and watches this painting. A few years passes, and then his father, the king, passes away. And there is a big story how he reclaims that throne and he becomes the king again. When he becomes the king, he's forgotten about the princesses. He is sorting out the country, sorting out everything that matters at the time. Apparently, he's just enough king, and he manages to bring order and justice in the land. A few years passes, and then he remembers. And we all need to remember these, Niẓāmī has this Sufi upbringing, and everything is symbolic. So when he says he forgets and then he remembers, all of this are signs of, in our daily life, everyday life. It happens that there are glimpses that we remember the divine. And of course, we are so busy with our daily life that we forget again. So he remembers, and then he calls his master architect, and he says that he wants to build 7 pavilions for each of these 7 different princesses to come and reside in them. So this manuscript, as you see on the screen, it's been illustrated over and over again by different artists. So Niẓāmī himself is from Ganje, which is in Azerbaijan of the time. These, all of this area of Azerbaijan, part of Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, they used to be Persia of the time. So Ganje, they were all speaking Farsi-speaking, Persian-speaking regions. So he is from Ganje, and the manuscripts are usually were either illustrated in Tabriz, in Shiraz, in Herat, which is nowadays Afghanistan. So the one you're looking at on your screen, this one is a Shiraz manuscript. And then if I move on, you see different ways of, these are the old manuscripts, all in different places in the world where they're keeping different pages of them. One thing that I like to remind everybody, Persian miniature wasn't designed to be on the walls. So, those days, traditionally, arts and crafts weren't separated. Everything was one, and they were meant to be used. So if there was a beautiful pot, it was meant to be used, ate from, or drank from. So is these beautiful paintings. They were part of a reading inside the book. So now that we put a frame around them and put them on the wall, is quite modern thing.
Yeah. But I think the interesting thing, just before, if you could go back to that one, Farkhondeh, I mean, to me, the interesting thing about these is how different they are stylistically. So
Exactly.
the one on the left seems like quite a sort of what we imagine a traditional Persian illumination looks like. The one on the middle, though, is by a Mughal artist, so somewhere in the Indian subcontinent, presumably. And then the one on the right is more like it looks to me like, some of the later works from Isfahan. There's a sort of a kind of stylization which is so beautiful, that the figure with the hat and with the plume, they look so much like those beautiful manuscripts that they had at the the Iran exhibition in the Isfahan section. I mean, obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about, but just to my untrained eye. And of course, it's quite late, that one. It's 1671, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's 17th century. So they have been, by 17th century, they started to get influenced a little bit by Western art. And it peaked by 19th century, where they were really influenced by that. But up to 16th century, which is the bloom of the Persian painting, it's basically what you see. That's the start of it on the one on the left, which they stay true to what the tradition was.
And just one other quick question. Before you illuminated your paintings from the Haft Paykar, what's the last historical, were they still illuminating it in the 19th century and in 20th century?
I don't
mean,
think the 20th century. I'm not sure. I would guess the latest one would be the 19th century.
Right.
As a book.
Right.
As a bound book. If the latest it wouldn't have been later than 19th century, because the kings weren't interested anymore. Mm-hmm. And so they wouldn't commission these workshops to work. So by, the Safavid era, which is the 15th, 16th, 7th century of Iran, they were really art lovers. And some of the kings, they even were familiar with the brush and the pen themselves. Mm-hmm. So they commissioned these big workshops and they supported them. And, some of these books, if you read about them, some of them would take a whole workshops of, I would say, 100 people, 25
Amazing.
years to finish.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy, quick thing to finish. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in Europe, I know a little bit about the manuscripts that were produced, the illuminations that were produced in Flanders in the 15th century and early 16th century. And they were produced again by these workshops. I'm not sure that they were as big, but maybe they were. I don't know enough. But I know that different masters come in over several generations and add illuminations. Mm-hmm. So they're not produced all in one go often. They're produced mm-hmm. in stages, in sections. Different bits are added. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you see in some of the books that the book seems to be finished in 15th or 16th century, but then on 17th or 18th century, something has been added to it, which right. you could see it because the style is a bit different.
It's different. That's interesting. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So anyway, so we're going back to Bahram Magur and his princesses. So when he orders this architect to build 7 pavilions or 7 palaces for his new brides, the architect designs each of the pavilions based on one planet. And we need to remember this is 12th century Iran. There were 7 planets at the time were known, 7 geographical sections they were available at the time. And we're talking about 7 main colors, and think about 7 days of the week. And here the name of Haft or 7 Paykar or 7 icon comes from. So it's a significant in number 7. So for us at the East, the week starts on a Saturday and ends on a Friday. So when all these 7 palaces are built, each based on a planet, so one is based on Saturn, the other one on Sun, Moon, then you have Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus. Each one has a specific color. So Saturn's color is black. Sun, of course, obviously is yellow or golden. Then you have Moon, according to Niẓāmī, it's green. Mars is red. Mercury is blue. Jupiter is sandalwood, and Venus is white. So he builds these palaces, a dome on each one of them based on these colors that represents a planet. So Bahram starts with, so he invites the brides, each one of them come and sit under the respected palace. One Indian, Byzantine, Tartar, Slavic, Maghrebi, Chinese, and a Persian princess. Each one sits under a pavilion, and he starts visiting each one of them in the particular day of the week. So if you think about it, Saturday is Saturn Day. So the color is black. The princess is Indian. And so he wears black, she's wearing black, and he goes to her pavilion and spends the day with her. While he's there, she tells him, so each one of these princesses on the particular day that belongs to them tells him a story. And that story is somehow related to the color they are representing. I like to see this as Bahram, the king of Persia, has chosen 7 female gurus. So through all these lessons that he's taking from them throughout the week or the year, he is becoming a better person, a more just king, and ascended in a way. So these domes with this subject of Bahram sitting under them with the princesses has been illustrated so many times. So I got the idea by looking through them, but I think I wanted to make it somehow particular to this series. And that's where I started looking at the numbers and introducing numbers to each painting. For example, Saturday is the beginning of the week and is day 1. And number 1 is represented by a dot or a circle. So all the images that you see, starting from the fountain, is in a spiral form, and all the geometrical patterns that I've used is either the spiral or the circular forms representing number 1. There is one single cypress tree, for example. There is one single plane tree. So there are different elements, or the daf or the drum that she's playing is another single, circular thing. So I've had these elements in my mind to represent number 1 with these hidden symbols in there.
Was that your choice entirely, or was there some reference that you had for choosing a circle for number 1?
No, this is a fact. This is a geometrical fact that circle represents number 1. This is not my making.
Okay, yeah. Sorry for my ignorance.
No. I'm glad you asked. For example, the obvious one would be a triangle representing 3. Yeah, but circle is number 1.
Obviously, the unity of the circle. Yes, unity. Of course, that makes sense.
It's infinity. It's never ending. It's D1. So that's why it's circle.
Yeah.
And it's the dot, and as it starts moving, it makes a line, and that line makes number 2. So that would represent number 2. So in this one, so the picture you are seeing in these on your screens, the one on the right is a little bit more details of the painting. The one on the blue is the one that is in the gallery at the moment. And then you see some details on your left-hand side. So Sunday, he's wearing golden colors. She's wearing yellow. All the symbols of two are there. The fountain is linear because two represented by a line. The dome is adorned by lines. There are two cypress trees, and other symbols, so on. I mean, the vessels, if you look closely, there are many things that you can find that can represent number two. So on Sunday, day 2, he is sitting under the golden dome, and the second princess is telling him another story, which somehow, and she's the Byzantine princess, telling him another story which has so much to do with joy and the gold and the yellow color. I'm not going to go through the details of the stories that they are, it's being said, because it would take a long time. If you're interested, you can read them. On the middle photo, the one on the left is a little bit of the story, which I illuminated, the story that the Byzantine princess is telling him. So on day 3, Monday, so the number is 3. The fountain represents 3. All the shapes that are there are based on 3, or hexagon, which is a derivative of 3, but mainly triangles. And so Bahram is spending the night with the Tartar princess under the influence of the moon. It's nighttime, you see the moon over there. And if you like, I would read a little bit of what Niẓāmī describes green. So he says, better than yellow robes are green. Green well befits the cypress's form. Green is the field of healthy corn. In green, the angels are adorned. Green, above all, is the soul's choice. Green verdures make the eyes rejoice. The growing plants are green of hue. Green is the color of all that grows. And I just read it for you in Farsi because unfortunately we killed the poetry by translation. I thought maybe you just get the rhythm, how it is in the rhythm in the original language.
Yes, please do.
سبز پوشی به از علامت زرد. Excuse me. سبز پوشی به از علامت زرد. سبزی آمد به سروبن در خورد. رنگ سبزی صلاح کشته بود. سبزی آرایش فرشته بود. جان به سبزی گراید از همه چیز. چشم روشن به سبزه گردد نیز. رستنی را به سبزه آهنگ است. همه سرسبزی بدین رنگ است. So he has a beautiful description of each color when we get to it. So I just read a little bit about the green, and I wish you could, I read you the translation, but unfortunately it's murdered, and I have to say, but and anyway, but it's better than nothing.
Well, lovely to hear it in the Farsi.
Thank you. So let's move on to Tuesday, which is the Mars day. So the color is red. The princess is wearing red or reddish. He is wearing red color. The princess is the Slavic princess. It's the day of fire. All the symbols are based on 4. All the geometries I've used is based on 4. And I want to tell you something really interesting for me. Without noticing, when I was painting these, I remember when I got to Tuesday, I remember my daughter telling me, Mom, these days you seem on fire. There is something fiery in you. And then I looked, I was wearing red, and on Saturdays I would look, I was wearing black. And honestly, I wasn't choosing them. They were talking. I don't know. It was just
They chose you.
they just were talking to me in a way, wear me. I don't know. Nowadays sometimes I do put those colors intentionally, but at the time it wasn't intentional. At the time, it just happened. I was so engrossed with the painting that I think in a way affected me. So that's Tuesday, number 4. And then we move on to Wednesday. The colors remind me of Isfahan, the town in Iran, which I really love. Again, number 5 is a sacred number for us in Iran as well. So I really made love with this painting, I have to say, with all the shades of lapis and everything that was used in this. One thing I like to mention, that all the colors in all of these paintings were handmade using pigments. I didn't buy anything on the tubes from art shops. The gold was handmade. Anyway, so we'll get to the methods and materials maybe later. I can explain a little bit later to you. So all the patterns you see here is based on 5 and derivative of it, which is 10. And then
this one is incredibly beautiful, that blue, the blue. I agree.
Yeah. And I have to say, I like the humbleness of the sandalwood color. On Thursday, it's there is some humility in it. It's color of earth. It's sandal, day 6, Thursday, and he is visiting the Chinese princess under the sandal dome. Even the dome is in hexagonal form. The fountain is hexagon, and so he is hearing another lesson.
I have to say, you are a fabulous colorist. The way you put colors together is just so beautiful. Looking at the sandalwood one, that just really perfect. Everything is balanced.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for your kind words. I have to say, I cannot take the credit for it, because I can say every time I came to my studio, I asked permission from Niẓāmī Soul to guide me, and all the master painters, I didn't want to imitate them in a way. They are masters and they're going to remain masters. I just wanted them to guide me, and I feel sometimes I had those guidance, which I'll explain to you later, because there are things happening in these pictures that I didn't realize at the time. And then later on, I realized, okay, geometrically, things has happened, which I didn't plan, basically. So I move on to day 7, which is Friday. This one, so I don't know if you noticed, the first one, Saturday, black, last one, Friday, white. And it's the journey of Bahram from blackness to whiteness. Along the way, my journey from blackness, hopefully I got there. I don't think so, but at least I started the way. And what was really symbolic for me, I used lead white, which you might know, it's very toxic. And I prepared the lead white myself. And it was a journey of it. It was really symbolic because you take a piece of lead, you wrap it in a muslin a cloth, you hang it over a vinegar bottle, and then you put it in your compost bin for 40 days. And if you look at the alchemical chart of metals, lead is down there at the bottom, and at the very top is gold. So the alchemists of the time, that was their idea of changing the lead to gold. So I was thinking, this lowly metal in a compost bin, all of this was symbolic for me. For 40 days with vinegar, with the smell and sourness and all the difficulties. And after 40 days, you open that muslin paper and you see this beautiful dust of white all over it. And you think, oh my goodness, this is alchemy, this is transformation. So I could see the transformation of Bahram from that blackness to white towards the end of the year after visiting these princesses.
What a lovely story. Yeah.
So I insisted on using lead white, and I was reacting to it, but I insisted on using lead white. And I'm happy that I did, because when you see this painting in person, you see it sort of shines through the white. It looks like a marble. It's the effect that I couldn't get with zinc white or titanium.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
We should probably move quite quickly now.
yeah, please tell
Farkhondeh,
me the
because
time. Yes.
it's
Okay.
20 to 8, and I'd like to leave at least 10 minutes or so to ask
Okay.
so maybe another 5 minutes, and then we'll
Sure.
wrap up for questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So here is the seven planets, their symbols, and the colors, which we already talked about. And this is a glimpse of the poetry that describes each day, which we're not going to get there anymore. I talked about it a little bit. I like to talk briefly about the geometry and the layout of each page. I did some research on the old manuscript from the British Library, started measuring and using my compass to find out if there was any meaningful relationship between all the elements. And I can assure you, definitely in each one of them, there is a design. If that design is happened by chance or by guidance, or if it was actually planned, I cannot answer, because I can see both of that happening in my own paintings. So based on what I learned studying the British Museum manuscripts, I designed a page that was, I don't know if these terms are any meaningful, based on root 2 and root 3 or golden rectangle. And I placed my paintings based on those. But then strange things happened without me realizing. For example, the king of on a Thursday, sandalwood color, the ring that the king is wearing is exactly in the center of the square. I never planned that one. It just happened. So after trying to work this out, I saw things happened there which it wasn't intentional by me. Anyway, I move on from these. So this is roughly how we start doing the geometry. So it always starts with a dot and then carries on to a circle, and then all these different patterns emerge from just a circle repeating and looking at it in a different ways. And these are some elements of geometries which I picked up from the paintings that you've just seen. These are just details of them. So there is calligraphy. I just quickly say about the script. It's a Persian script. It's called Nastaliq. It is different than the Arabic sulus or nasr. The Arabic scripts are more angular and it's more on geometry, based on geometry. The Iranian Nastaliq form is softer, more curvy. It's more like poetry that we love so much, and it looks like nature. And some of them actually represent, it can look like the eye of an owl, for example, one letter, or a wing of a bird, and so on. So they say they might be based on that. Then materials, as I said, all handmade. So either collected pigments or bought pigments, but they are merged in gum Arabic. The gold is 23.5 karat gold, which I grind with my finger in honey and apply. So I move on correctly. All the paper is stained by myself using natural elements like walnut, chestnut, pomegranate, aubergine, madder root, different stuff. And the pictures you see at the bottom, it's an old mill in the middle of the bazaar in Isfahan, where the old man, hopefully he's alive. These pictures are more than 10 years ago, where sometimes I get my stains from. This is a hollyhock flower, which I collect in summer dry and use them to size the paper. So when you apply gold, it doesn't sink in, stays at the top and makes it shinier. These are a little bit of the tools and materials that we use. This is on display in the exhibition at the moment, Aga Khan Gallery. If you like to visit, the glues, the lapis lazuli, azurite, and the calligraphy as well. The calligraphy reeds and inks and other stuff that is on display.
It's quite similar to what was being used in Netherlandish workshops, early Netherlandish painters' workshops in the 15th century.
Yeah.
The same sorts of things. They would put the pigment in little shells.
Exactly. 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 We do the same. We put the pigments in the shell, as you might see in front of the in the display box.
Yes, in the beginning, in the front there. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a natural way of keeping the pigments.
Yeah.
And then, so there are some elements of natural stylized, whatever we see around us, as leaves and flowers. There are two forms of them. I like to call them biomorphs. Some people call it Islimi or Rumi. There are different terms in Turkish or Persian style, but we are all talking about the same thing. So we are looking at the natural elements and they're being stylized in different forms. And you can see the examples of that in this section of different photos. So these are called basically illumination, and mainly gold is used for this. And I finish off with two illumination. Usually the books who were commissioned by the kings would start by two shamsa or roundels. They represent sun, and the rays that they come out, they represent sun rays. So they usually would have one at the beginning of the book and one at the end of the book. And this is how the exhibition starts and ends, imagining you walking through a manuscript. Sorry if I talk too much.
Oh,
If there is any question, if I know the answer, I'm happy to answer.
I'm going to open for questions, but I'm just going to ask you one quick question of my own. How long did it take you to do all of this? It just feels like it must have taken a long time to make the paper, make the pigments.
It does. It does. It's not a rushed process at all.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's mainly the process more than the result. I have to say, research for it and getting my mind with the poetry, reading it, understanding it. It took me at least a couple of years. And then preparing the paper and everything happened at the same time. But for each painting, as soon as the design was ready, just painting of it, I could say each painting takes something roughly around 100 hours.
Gosh, yeah. Well, look, let me open to questions because I'm sure we've got quite a lot of people attending, and if anybody has any questions, either raise your hand or put them in the chat. And Abigail, my colleague Abigail, who's also in the Zoom, will admit you. Please ask questions. I know there's at least one person here who told me earlier she was one of Farkhondeh's students. So
I mean, I have a question if we can start with that. I thought it was so interesting, all of it, and especially how you were describing how immersed you became in it and that you started wearing colors without realizing it. You mentioned that you had elements of the geometry that you didn't realize you were doing. I'd love if you could tell us a bit more about that.
About the elements of geometry.
Yeah, and what you were saying about how you didn't necessarily feel like they came from you, but these master artists who you wanted the inspiration from.
Yeah, because there is sometimes I think when you go to museums, you see one particular painting that everybody is drawn to of the master painters, and some of them are left alone in a way. And when you study them, there is a geometry underneath it. So there is proportion, and then there are meanings into it. For example, if imagine two squares, the lower square, usually even in the Western painting, represent the earthy realms, and the upper square represent the higher realms. So the saints or the angels are usually at the top part of it, and the demons are at the lower part of it. So some of this can be thought and be conscious, but in my experience, I think it's possible that some of it is not conscious. When you look at into details, where, for example, the position of a vessel is, or the position of the princess is against the of the king, or the position of a tree is, or how the tree is bowing toward a respected person, then some of that it's unconscious. At least it was for me. So I can say it is possible that it would have been the same for some of those master painters.
sounds
I
to me
hope
like
I answered your question.
Yeah, no, definitely.
it sounds to me like you're living the whole process. You know, you're so immersed in it, it becomes your life, and you're just totally immersed in it for such a long period of time.
Yeah, you become one. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As you say, you become one. It becomes part of you in a way.
Is it difficult then to go back to the outside world?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I can
Sometimes.
imagine.
This is a perfect word, but
Mm.
when you face the reality, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions here, and we also have a comment from Alafia who says, Farkhondeh, you're an inspiration with a big
Thank
heart.
you
So
so
you should
much.
know that.
It's
But
lovely
Gillian
to
Gillian says, is there a way to present contemporary Persian miniature that is more in conversation with its original book art context? Or do you think it has inherently become separate so that from now on it exists as paintings on walls? Do you think anything is lost or gained by hanging them on a wall?
No, I don't think anything is lost. Unfortunately, we are not reading books anymore, let alone handwritten books. We are all reading a screen, aren't we? So we are losing that. I think somehow we are losing that hand, heart, head relationship. We are more in the head, less in our hand and heart. I think as long as we are practicing, it doesn't matter if as long as we are practicing it truly, relating these three elements together, I don't think it matters if it's on the walls. It's for people to see, and it's, that's the only way to share it these days. I don't think we have any other choice, to be honest.
There's another question. So Aya says, thank you so much. I was wondering if you can tell us more about how you are staining the paper you draw on.
Yes, of course. So I boil some natural elements. It can be henna, it can be pomegranate, dried pomegranate skin, aubergine skin, walnut, the middle part, or the green, a fresh green. I dry ground. And when you're ready to stain, I boil a little bit of them in a proportion of water, and then you pass it through a muslin, and then you just either brush it on your paper or you dip your paper in it and leave it for a few minutes. The longer it stays, of course, the darker it becomes, and you get that natural color. Tea, I mean, you have none of this, you always have tea bags. You can use tea bags, and it's a lovely stain for paper.
We have another comment. Gillian says, thank you. It's absolutely magnificent work. Hira says, thank you so much, ma'am Farkhondeh, for sharing amazing knowledge. I love the exhibition. It's so beautiful. Mariam says, great lecture, thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you so much, Farkhondeh. So we have a very, very happy audience tonight.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being here and spend the evening with us. It's my pleasure.
It's been wonderful, and hearing. I mean, I've been to the exhibition, and we had a little chat a few weeks ago. But hearing you speak about the whole thing, I've learned so much more.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for
really
making this possible. Thank you.
I hope we can do more, because I know you have a new project. Just tell us before we go, what's next?
Well, what's next? I'm on Conference of the Birds, or as Michael Berry liked to call it, Canticle of the Birds painting. So it's a trilogy. The first one is finished, has been exhibited 2, 3, 4 times already. I am working on the second one. These are a little bit different size-wise, so they are really huge paintings, maybe 1 meter in height, I think, or maybe more, 1.5 meters, I think. And but the paintings are small. I love the story. It's another journey for me with Attar, the poet. Is the 12th century poet in Nishabur, Tehran, a great Sufi mystic. And so I'm on the second painting the Seven Valleys, and hopefully next year I'm going to start the third one, and I'm hoping to be able to exhibit the 3 of them together.
Well, we won't ask you more, because I want you to come back and tell us in more detail about the whole thing and about this Canticle of the Birds, which sounds rather wonderful. Oh, there's another. Tara says, I'm watching with a friend who asks why you make all your own pigments, and I'm very excited to see your Conference of the Birds. So why do you make your own pigments?
Well, first of all, I love the process. Second of all, when you make your own pigment, you're making pure pigment. So you cannot imagine how far a little pigment goes. I use a tiny shell and I can paint for big area of it. When you buy a store-bought tube, it's full of fillers, and you need a lot of paint to paint with it. So what I'm using is pure color with just a little bit of binder. In this case, it's gum arabic, and the luminosity of it is different. It's brilliant, and when you grind it yourself, you get different size of particles, smaller ones and bigger ones, and the reflection of light through them is different. So it feels as if the painting is more alive than when you buy the pigments or the colors.
Great. And well, listen, I think we're going to have to stop now because we've been going for best part of an hour. Somebody just said, I just joined and missed the presentation. If there's a recording available, yes, there will be. And it will be on Athena's YouTube channel. So please check us out. You'll find other things. If you search on it, there's another lecture about a beautiful illuminated manuscript by Susan Babai, who is one of our trustees and a professor at the Courtauld Institute. You will find this one. You'll find it'll probably take us a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days to put it on the YouTube channel. But please do go and look for it, and join our Instagram account, because we will, when it's up there, we'll post. We'll do a story and a post to say it's on the YouTube channel, and we'll provide the link, so you'll find out when it happens. Anyway, Farkhondeh, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for attending. We hope you'll come back, Farkhondeh. We want you to come back, definitely. Maybe not even waiting till the end of the next process. If we can draw you out at any point of your concentration, I'd love to talk more about these things with you.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and thank you everybody for hearing me.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.